Welcome to Thrift Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 165, a different episode.
A different episode.
No, it's
there we go.
So we haven't done this in a while. You know, the last time we did this kind of episode was episode 34. That's a long time ago.
Long ago.
It was, doesn't it? Things flew by. So
It really does.
we have decided to do a question and answer one. And this is something that we went on social media and we let everybody know, hey, if you have any questions that you wanted to get answered on air, you could always give us a call, or you could hit us in the DMs or use that question box in our Instagram story. So we had some questions that were sent to us. So we're going to have some voicemails that we're going to play. So those are always fun. And some of these, by the way, you know, if you're new, they'll be really helpful. If you've been reselling for a while, you're like, I kind of know that. And if there's anything we ever give that is wrong, there's always the comment section below to correct us. So we always appreciate that.
Yeah, and we just want to say right off the bat, for whatever reason, we were having a little bit of issues with our Google Voice number. We weren't getting notifications every time we were getting messages, and we weren't going in manually and checking unless we got a notification. And so there were a lot of messages that we received that we never responded to. And so we were just like the other day, we were looking through and we're like, oh my goodness, there's so many here. So we felt terrible. So if you have called and we haven't responded to you, it's not because we don't like you. It's because
we weren't ghosting you.
Yeah. So we will do better in the future to get back to you right away. And we really do appreciate all the phone calls. So cool.
All right. You ready to go?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Ready to do this.
All right. So some of these questions will take us a little bit longer than others, but you know, we'll see. So luckily I don't think we chose any yes or no ones. Those are the worst, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a podcast. What kind of podcast would that be?
I mean, it'd just be quick, fast, you know.
All right. So let's go with number one. What are some of the most noteworthy traits that define successful resellers? So I feel like this is a question that's posed to us like we're gurus, like we know. I can just speak on experience from observing good resellers.
Yeah, that and just in general success in different areas of life, there do tend to be certain characteristics and traits that follow or kind of represent the people who are very successful. And we've talked a lot about those in our level up review. So if you are just kind of getting started and in any area of your life, you're thinking, hey, I want to become successful and I'm not sure where to start. Check out our level up review episodes because there's a lot of just nuggets and key points of here. If you implement this will be, life changing for you. I would say, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of similar ones. But if I had to boil it down to one, and I know Orlando hates this word, and I'm going to use it anyways, but I think discipline is
that
key.
Our word of the year? Do we have a word of the year?
That was my word of the year several years ago.
Okay. I've only done this for 2 years.
Well, not for the podcast, but just for my life. I always have a word of the year. And the reason I say that is, and again, you can replace discipline, self-discipline with something like, consistency or, tenacity, internal fortitude. There's a lot of things you can replace that with if you're like Orlando and that word kind of bugs you. But the idea is you've got to stay focused even when you don't feel like it. If you want to be successful, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be emotional highs and lows. There's going to be times where you get up and you don't feel like getting up early and going and sourcing, or you don't feel like listing the items that have been sitting around for a while. And the reality is if you're not doing the things you know you need to do, and it's usually very simple, you can probably sit down in 10 minutes and list out, here are the steps I should take in order to grow my store and become more successful. And then it's a matter of actually implementing those things. So I would say discipline is probably one of the crucial ones for me.
Yeah. And I mean, and tied into that, there's a lot, but I would say, I've done this for like 10 years now. And then this is now year number 3 of me doing full time and observing, I've been able to travel the country, get to meet other resellers, especially because of social media. And one of the things I have consistently noticed is that those resellers that stay for a while, right? Because here's the thing, the reselling game, like resellers come and go like crazy, even on social media. Like you one day you're having a conversation like, hey, what happened to this person? I don't know. I guess they stopped reselling. And they end up finding the model that works. So what I mean by that is they don't keep chasing different models, right? So they don't go like, oh, Amazon's hot, so I'm just going to keep doing Amazon. And then now that eBay's hot, I'm going to jump to eBay. Oh, Mercari's good, I'm going to do Mercari. Oh, Poshmark's good, Poshmark is good. Or, hey, this item is selling high, and they keep jumping from item to item. Usually it's individuals that have consistent items that sell. Now, they do have to flex, they do have to adapt, but they have certain niches that they're good at. Right. And it's not one niche, it's multiple niches. So the resellers I know that do things well, They know multiple niches. Now, there are some that are very good. Like I know some guys that they just do vintage, like 90s clothing. And right now, because of that market, they've done very well. But I know others that have several. So they're able to dabble into vintage clothing, but they also know vintage stereo equipment, right? And they also know vintage trains, and they also know this other field. So when they go sourcing or they do bulk buys, they know several different areas, right? And that takes time. That takes time. That takes patience. That takes failing. The other one is they have consistent inventory supply. So what I mean is they have networked in a way where they're never concerned about where they're going to get inventory. They always have stuff to sell. And what they've done is over the years, they've networked. My thing is it's very tough to just be dependent on, let's say, just ordering pallets or just ordering bulk inventory or just going to garage sales or just going to thrift stores. Like there has to be a way where it's a consistent, sourcing opportunity, where that means that, hey, this is my plan A. So plan A for me is going to be, okay, I have a wholesale deal and I also have bulk inventory, but here's my plan B. It's right. These are other sellers I know that they look for items that they sell, but when they find items that doesn't apply to them, they'll contact me. So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think I get what you're saying there. And then, so I think that's good. Adaptability, flexibility are crucial.
Oh, that's huge.
Discipline and consistency. I think all those things kind of work together. And then my last thing that I would just add, and I don't think I need to go into a lot of depth on this, but just a willingness to learn, right? If you are stuck in a place where you feel like you know everything, or you're not willing to spend a few hours improving yourself, whether it's taking a course, watching some YouTube videos, reading a book, doing just market research on eBay and figuring out what's selling for what prices. If you're not willing to learn and grow, you're not going to be successful. You might get lucky for a time, but when difficulties come, you're not going to have that ability to adapt. So be willing to be disciplined, be willing to adapt, be willing to be flexible, be consistent in something. Don't just go with the flow, and constantly change what you're doing, and be willing to grow. I think if you can do those things, everything else is going to fall into place. Right. So that's what I would say. Do that and you will be successful.
I want to add one more thing though.
Sure.
You got to have systems in place, systems of inventory, systems of bookkeeping, systems to be able to manage your money, right? Because I know so many, and I'm guilty of this myself, many resellers that they buy and they buy and they buy and they buy, but they have no system of processing that inventory, right? So they end up having a backlog of inventory, or they have no process of storing that inventory. And so when everything sells, they're scrambling all over the place, they're losing stuff, and they have no system of customer service. Like they don't know where they land on, hey, this is what my process is for returns. This is what my process is for when I get, a bulk deal. This is my process for when I need, to sort. Like they have go-tos. They don't have to spend a lot of time. Now that comes with time, but it's huge. And I would say the last point is customer service. Like, and that applies with adaptability, understanding that markets change, understanding that number one priority is the customer, no matter as much as we hate saying that because we get, jaded sometimes. Understanding that ultimately the customer is the reason why you're able to sell those items. And so you have to set things up for the customer, whether that means on the front end, having great listings, having, competitive prices, having great policies, and on the back end, when things don't work out, how do you handle your returns? How do you deal with angry customers? If you're able to do those things along with everything else we said, you should be the A+ reseller.
For sure. A++.
At least it's my thoughts. All right. You ready for the next one?
Let's do it.
All right. So number 2 said, how do you handle items you don't know much about but have a large profit margin? So I'll start with this one. So this is a tough one because it all depends on, are you willing to take the time to learn, right? You have to be willing to spend the time. There are some items that I know have a large profit margin, but I know will take me a long time, right? So give you an example. Let's say we're dealing with, I don't know, air conditioning units, right? And, I'm at an auction and there's several units that are being sold, but it's not guaranteed that they all work. And then I might have to repair some, and I have no expertise in that field. Now, it could be a huge profit margin. I may be able to pay, 100 to 200 to 500 and on so many units, and, my net profit might be 2 to 3K. But then the problem is I don't have the resources to take care of it. Number one, I have to figure out the transportation, right? How am I going to get those units from point A to point B? Then do you have the storage for those items? 3, do you have the ability to fix those items? And if you don't, are you willing to pay someone to do it? Or are you willing to do it, right? But you got to to me, time is the biggest thing here, because I have picked up some things where, it could have been something that I could have sold for like $3,000-$4,000. But then all the time I would have spent and trying to get connected with an auction house and da-da-da. I sometimes have just said, I'm just going to go with the fast flip and I'm just going to flip this for, under 1,000 and just let it go, cash flow that into something else and just move on. But that's a question you have to ask yourself. And again, do you have the capital to spend it? Right? Do you have, let's say, I remember when I first started reselling, I only had like $5,000 capital, right? And if somebody approached me with a $5,000 deal and said, hey, with this $5,000, you could turn it into $25,000. If I really knew myself, would I have gone all in? Possibly. But if I didn't, it would have been a lot more risk tied to it, right? So it has to be, I definitely believe it has to be something you are well aware of for you to drop a lot of money. But if time is not a problem and capital is not a problem, I don't see a problem with it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that's all good. I think you're right. I think there's going to be risk. You have to be self-aware enough to know, are you able to handle the risks involved, especially if it's a big purchase or it's just something you like Orlando said earlier, do you have the systems in place to handle it? And going back to Richest Man in Babylon, one of the things that it said in that book was luck is not a thing, but the successful people know how to capitalize on opportunities when they come. And so you have to position yourself in a place where you can capitalize when those opportunities come. And maybe for the first couple big opportunities that come, you haven't positioned yourself there yet. You don't have the systems in place. You haven't spent the time learning. But if you do that now, if you figure that stuff out now, then you can take those risks and capitalize on opportunities. But it's going to come down to, hey, if there's a potential $2,000 profit on an item and it's going to take a big portion of your capital, it's not going to hurt to say, I'm going to spend 2 or 3 hours researching this and make sure I know what I'm doing, because you're going to count that into either one of two things. One, your salary, how much per hour are you making? Or 2, avoiding the loss, right? So maybe that's, you spend 5 hours researching and it pays off and you end up making $2,000 in the next 24, 48 hours or month or whatever it is. And you could say, wow, that was great. Or that 5 hours could say, you know what? I'm not buying this. This is a bad deal. I thought it might have been good. And that saved you $1,000 or however much, right? So think about your time that way and be willing to do the research.
All right. And it's so hard. I'm telling you, because sometimes you'll see stuff and you're like, hey, I can make so much money. But how many times have we bought something and it sits on our shelves, right? Because we just don't want to do. And then you have lost money, right? And time. If you spend some time and then you give up on it. So you got to think those through. So hopefully that answered your question. All right, we're going to do one more regulars before we jump into a voicemail.
I like it.
All right. So number 3, how do you move past bad buys in mental terms? I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
You move past it. That's it. Honestly, it's kind of a common cliche now, but the idea of falling forward and or failing forward might be another way of saying that, is mistakes are going to happen, bad buys, maybe a mistake, you didn't handle something properly and you broke something. You can look at that and you can let that eat you up, or you can say, and one thing I learned when I was taking a community college class when I was right out of high school, and it was a basic economics class. I think it was maybe macroeconomics. And one of the things that I learned in that class that I've kept with me my entire life is the idea of sunk cost. And so many people get in their mind, let's say you spent $500 on something and it didn't work out, but you're like, maybe if I spend another 100 and then it'll work out. Well, I've already wasted $600, so I might as well. And you don't think about it as, I've already lost this money, right? It's sunk cost. You can't get it back. And so instead of thinking, I've already spent all of this time, maybe it's a career, I've already spent all this time, and if I don't continue in it, even if a better opportunity comes, maybe another career, path, and you say, you know what, but I've already spent all these years in schooling for this, so I'm going to stick with what I know because I don't want to waste what I learned. Well, that's sunk cost. It's already gone. You can't get it back. And so if a better opportunity, you've always got to do the cost benefit analysis. If a better opportunity comes up, you take the better opportunity and you ignore. It's like you can't cry over spilt milk. And so failing forward, recognizing you can learn from mistakes, and then also thinking about that idea of sunk cost, that once you've already paid for something, and if you've lost, paying extra and extra and extra into it, hoping to maybe redeem a little bit, is oftentimes not worth it, because that money is gone, that mistake has happened, and maybe you can redeem it somehow, and that's great if you can, but the best way to redeem it is to learn, to move forward, and then to take that as, if you were taking a college class, you're going to spend hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars per credit, right, to learn some things. So if you make a mistake and it costs you $100, $200, $500, just think, wow, that's what I paid to learn this lesson. And you learn the lesson and you move forward. And you just kind of have to have that mentality and not let yourself get swayed by the constant ups and downs, and find a way to stay consistent and find a way to stay motivated even when things get really, really difficult.
Yeah. And from a practical perspective, if it's a bad buy, like there's no, like you try to redeem it, right? Let's say you I remember one time I bought a hockey jersey, and I thought it was worth like, I don't know, $300. And then I found out that it was fake. You know how I found out that it was fake? It had a Nike tag and a Reebok tag in it. Don't even know how that happened. It was a USA hockey jersey. And the worst thing I could have done is that I kept thinking it over because I didn't get rid of it. I kept seeing it. I put it in my pile of like stuff I need to donate. And I kept looking at it. And I kept looking at it. I kept looking at it. And I'm not a fan of donating items. Like if they're in your store and you can still sell them. But if they're a bad buy, best thing you could do is just get rid of it. I mean, physically move it. Like get it out of sight so you're not thinking about it. You just got to move on. And you got to count those losses. It's like anything in life. I mean, like today, my car before the podcast didn't start. And that right now, it's, I could think about it and it could bother me. But here's the thing. It's just part of the system. I know that by later on this afternoon, it's going to be at a repair shop. It's going to get repaired. Yes, I'm going to have to get a rental car. Yes, I plan on getting a ton of sourcing. But just understanding that 2-3 days from now, it's going to be a non-issue. Car is going to be working again. Everything I source is going to work out. My profits are going to pay for it. And I'm going to be okay. And it's the same thing when you do bad buys. Just understand that that's just going to be part of what happens when you resell. Now, we've had people before on our podcast or on our YouTube comments say, I've never had a bad buy. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure you are probably a legit reseller, because the thing with being a reseller at times is you do take risk. You sometimes go all in on a certain item because you know that profit margin. If you always play it safe, then your profits will always be safe. Sometimes you have to be willing to take that risk, right? And so that happens at times. So as long as you're able to come in with the mindset that, hey, every so often, I am going to pick up something that's junk or that's trash. Every so often, I'm going to pick up a hot item that I think I'm going to make a lot of money on. And by the time I get it listed, the market's already tanked. If you come in with that mindset and understanding that that's the cost of business, it's like doing returns. It's like sometimes when you have items that you ship and you think it was going to cost you a certain amount, it ends up costing you the same amount of profit that you were going to make. It's part of what happens. Coming in with that mindset is super important, because if you're always thinking that every single time that you source, you're always going to win, you're going to be really sad when you don't, because you're not having an understanding of how the business works. So hopefully that helps.
I think that's good. And one last thing I'll just quickly say, and I try and teach, I teach sixth graders now, which is interesting, going from high school to sixth grade. But even when I was teaching high school, I tried to teach the same thing. Oftentimes, whatever's happening in your life in the present feels like the most all-consuming thing. It seems like it's just devastating, and you let it impact you. And I always tell, like when I was teaching high school students, I would say, hey, do you remember that time when you were in the fifth grade and you had that really big project and you were up all night and you did a bad job and you messed up and you couldn't sleep? And a lot of times they're like, yeah, I guess I did stress when I was then. And I'm like, does it matter now? No. Okay, so the thing you're really, really stressed about now and you're letting it control and consume your life, you're going to look back a couple of years from now and you're going to say it didn't really matter. It mattered in the moment, but then as you move on, you look back and you usually don't even remember. So there are going to be a handful of life-altering things that happen in your life that you can't get away from. Most things aren't that. Most things aren't.
That's true.
But we treat most things like they are. And so when you make a mistake, maybe it's you went broke. Like you in life, and we're going to be doing, our total money makeover book. And so you can go broke and you can say, man, I messed up, but you can still fix that. You can come back from those things. So most things aren't the end of the world, but we treat them like they are. And so if you can just, when you're going through a bad thing right now, you lose some money, you make a mistake, remember that 5 years from now, you're going to be like, man, why was I so stressed about that? Because life has moved on and I've moved on. So if you can kind of think about that now, it'll help you get through those times.
Agreed. And that's so key in understanding that you can always rebound. I mean, how many times you hear about individuals that lost it all and then they rebuilt and they're okay. I mean, even Dave Ramsey with the Total Money Makeover, he was a millionaire and he lost it all. I can't comprehend that because I've never been there, but it's doable, right? And so understand that this is something that all resellers go through. All right. Are we ready for a voicemail?
Yeah, our first call.
Thank you for calling, by the way.
And I haven't actually listened to these yet. Orlando kind of helped pick these out. So I will be hearing these for the first time right now.
And some are oldies.
Yeah, because oldies but goodies.
Because we didn't get to them.
Hey guys, so I'm a fairly new seller. I currently do resell sneakers, so I have that niche. But if I wanted to expand into other categories, when I walk into a thrift store or I go to a yard sale, it seems sort of overwhelming because I'm looking at different items and I really don't know where to start. If I'm looking at, I don't know, records and then I'm looking at something else, sometimes it's easy to, kind of look at a few things and then quit. I mean, how do you guys suggest going into a thrift store or going into a yard sale and how to kind of be organized and make sure that you get everything and see everything, but also do it in an efficient manner? Look forward to hearing what you guys have to say.
Do you mind if I jump on this really quick?
That's fine. Yeah.
Just because I'm still the newer of the two of us when it comes to reselling. But I mean newer. So I remember exactly what that feels like. And some really good advice just in any area when you're trying something new is don't think that you have to be there day one. It's going to take time. And so when you see people who know how to do garage sales and they know a lot of items, they're spending sometimes 30 seconds, walk around the garage sale, quick look through things, they're jumping in their car and they're leaving. When I first started, even when I went with Orlando, he was like waiting for me at times, or I'd go into a thrift store. There was times where I could spend an hour at one garage sale. I could spend 2 or 3 hours in one thrift store. Why? Because I get to the tie section. I'm like, man, I don't know anything about ties. And so I would spend an hour looking at every single brand. Do these sell? What do these sell for? What do these sell for? I'd go home and I'd watch a YouTube video. And over time, what ends up happening is I might spend, in 1 week, 10 hours in a thrift store, finding a few things that are worthwhile. And then the next week I can spend 8 hours. And then the next week, 4 hours. And the next week I could walk in and I can look and say, I know for a fact that's not worth money because I've already looked up that brand and I know that's not worth money. And so the amount of time you're spending gets less and less, the amount of things you have to look up. And then what's really cool is then when you see something you've never seen before, you know to look it up. It's like a red flag for you. Hey, this is unique. I've been to thousands of thrift stores. I've spent hundreds of hours at garage sales and I've never seen anything like this before. When you first go, everything looks like that, right? Everything looks unique. But the more you see common things, when you go through a clothing rack and you see the same brand over and over at every single thrift store, you're like, yep, that brand must be garbage. But when you see something unique, you look it up and maybe it's garbage or maybe it's the winner. And so just realize it's going to take time. And the more you do it, the less time it's going to take and the more often you're going to spot the winners.
Yeah. And I will tell you in the beginning, and Mike did this very well. And, we've talked about this in other podcasts, how curiosity is a good thing, right? And the fact that Mike, his first score at the thrift store was a skin caliper thing that you paid, $10 and he sold for like 100 something.
Yeah, I think I paid a little bit more than that. But yeah, it was a weird, bizarre thing that I was like, what is this? And I just looked it up. I was naive. And so I looked up everything.
Yeah. And so looking up everything. And I know it sounds painful, but I really...
It is.
It is, but I really think in the beginning, there's 2 ways to go about it. The first part is you saw what you know. So sneakers, right? Now, is it possible that you also could delve into sandals or you can delve into dress shoes or you can delve into hiking items? You got to go with what you enjoy sourcing, I think, in the beginning, right? And then over time, right, you can begin to venture out or you can go the other route. The other route is what I did. I'll never forget. I would go into thrift stores and I would plan to be in that thrift store for 2 hours. And I literally would start in one part of the store and I would just go through everything and anything that I thought had value, I would look up. And I did that for weeks on end. Sometimes I walked out with stuff and other times I didn't, but it just took time. Now my process is different. Like when I walk in a thrift store now, first place I go is shoes. To me, shoes have the greatest ROI. I can go in there. I usually try to go first for the shoes that are behind the glass because those are items that people don't want to pick up. A lot of resellers don't like paying up. I like paying up. I don't mind paying $35 to make $100. And so a lot of people will pass on that. Then after that, I love Hawaiian shirts and I love shirts that are unique. So I'll go to the short sleeve section and I'll go through that. Then after that, I'll go to the jackets. And after go to the jackets, then I'll go to maybe electronics, right? But I'm not a fan of electronics because I know it takes work, right? So you got to figure out. I think, Mike, you probably will go electronic first. Has that changed?
Yeah.
Mike's going back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, I'll do shoes a lot of times first, but electronics or home goods in general, because I do really well with home goods. So I've kind of started to steer away from electronics. I like to glance really quick because you never know if you find something really awesome. But yeah, home goods I tend to do pretty well in, so I'll check those out. Toys, I love to look at the toys. And so, yeah, I have a method, but again, it's one of those things where you develop an eye, and the longer you do it, Orlando used to always say to me, there'd be times I'd say like, man, I go to thrift stores, I don't find anything. And he'd say, like, don't worry, the longer you do it, the more things you'll find, just because you're building the asset that you have in between your ears, right? Your brain, you're developing the knowledge base that you have. And the nice thing is just think about, you're not going to remember everything. You're not going to remember exactly which items, which brands, but you start to categorize. You start to categorize. I can tell by the feel of this based off of the feel of shirts that I've sold that are worth more money. And so you start to categorize, and it makes it easier. And you can kind of go through and just think about, you can hear a song that you heard, years and years ago, or you can jump on a bike if you haven't been on a bike in a long time. And a lot of that stuff, it's just there, even if you don't, think about it all the time. And same thing with brands and types of items. You'll just see it and be like, that, but only because you've seen 500 of them, only because you've seen 500 that are different than the one that you're seeing right now. And so just get your eyes out there, and it takes time, but that time is going to pass no matter what. So you might as well be learning and growing. That goes back to that first thing of what does it take to be a successful reseller? Successful resellers, especially if you're like a garage sale store like we are, essentially, the more items you see, it takes time, but you'll build it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, after you go to the thrift store, right, and you understand that there are certain items that are value, go back and do some research on the app itself, on the eBay app or on the desktop. Go to Sold, type in what you found at the thrift store and see different variances of that same item. And so then you have a better eye when you go out, because over time, you won't use your phone very much. Like I remember Mike in the beginning, like always with the phone, right? Always the phone out. And we always would have a discussion like, is it okay to take the phone out? Is it not? It's always okay to take the phone out. At least that's my thoughts. But over time, for doing things for a while, like with sneakers for you, you understand like what kind of sneakers you're looking for when you go into place. That's not a tough one. I'm the same way when it comes to cowboy boots. It's very rare that I look up cowboy boots. I can actually go by the weight of a boot or how it feels. And then I know its quality. And then I can guess the brand sometimes. I mean, I'm not that good, but sometimes it's like that. But it does take time. It's going to take research, but that time that you spend researching will be well worth it.
Cool. I like it.
All right, let's jump into one more, and then we'll talk about social media for a little
bit.
All right, number 4, your thoughts on the offer to watchers option. Is there a way to keep track of your offers? What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
This one I think is super simple. If you see an offer available to send it. It's really, there's so much behind the algorithms. How long is it in somebody's cart? How many times can you send an offer to somebody? Who's eligible? And I would say, unless you're a computer programmer that like cares to develop your own system, it almost doesn't matter what's happening behind the scenes and trying to keep track of all that stuff. I just say, if you have the ability to send an offer, send it as soon as you see it. And again, we talked in an earlier episode about the idea of kind of striking while it's hot. One of the things is people will put things in their cart sometimes, or if they've viewed it multiple times and in like an hour or a certain amount of time. And so even knowing all that back stuff isn't important. Just know if you have a chance in an offer, send the offer right away. And if they accept it, great. If they don't, you didn't lose anything. So I think don't even worry about who's received offers. Can you send more offers? If it's available, send it. And you're going to win sometimes, you're going to lose sometimes, but you're never going to win if you don't play.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it is I've had people ask me like, how do you know who you're sending offers to? Or I've had people before say, man, what if I keep sending it to the same person? Like, if you don't know, it doesn't matter. And even if you did, it doesn't matter. I mean, what's the worst that happens? Somebody gets mad at you, sends you an angry message. Like, I wouldn't stress it. And if you caught our last update episode, the information they gave us, right? The 3 ways that they choose who you can send offers to, right? The number 1 is it's a watcher. The second one, it's in their cart. The third one is they're doing heavy browsing. That means they looked at an item more than 3 times within 15 minutes. And that's why you need to act fast. I mean, I am sending offers all day. If you just saw my phone right now, I just sent an offer. And so the reason, well, that was different. Somebody wanted a deal right now, so I had to move on it. But I'm telling you, you got to think about yourself. Like, if there's an item you're looking at and you're like, I don't know, I kind of want this item. And then you get sent an offer for cheap. Like, you might go, I want this. Or even if it's not cheap, even if it's 10% off, the impulsivity of the moment will get that person to accept and they'll buy, and you're converting a sale. Will it end up a return later? Maybe. Will the person have remorse later? Maybe. But the key thing is to keep converting. So I love the send offers to watchers. I think is one of the best tools around because number 1, it's going to trigger the algorithm, right? Because you're having constant activity. And again, we don't know everything that the algorithm tracks, but I'm pretty sure that's one of them. 2, you're catching people right when it's happening, right? And 3, it's kind of like a bonus, right? You may have already sales that are coming through the day, just people randomly out buying or sending you an offer. But now you can take a proactive step to convert those sales. So I definitely would say that is probably one of the top 3 features that eBay's released for me in the last few years.
Yeah, it's been good.
So, all right. Before we move on, if you are following us on Instagram, we appreciate you. On Facebook, we appreciate you. TikTok, we appreciate you even more. No, I'm joking. TikTok might be gone. I'm hearing theories about banning TikTok. So we'll see. That would be this is why we're on every platform, right? And Facebook, we love you guys because you know what? You guys are the loyal. Because sometimes I don't know what it is, but we don't get back to you on Facebook. And even when I respond to something 2 weeks after, you're always like, thank you, or if putting in that so I appreciate that. So on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, we are Pure Hustle Podcast. On Twitter, we are Pure Hustle Cast. If you want to give us a call like everyone else has done for these voicemails, you can always call us at 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Or you can shoot us an email at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. I almost gave my personal email at that time.
Oh, that'd have been cool.
That would have been interesting. So you can email us at purehustlepodcast@gmail.com. If you are watching the podcast, we appreciate you. But if you're listening and you want to watch us, because at this point in time, Mike's on the road and he's maybe dropping some videos from his road trip, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and that bell notification. And as always, thank you all for consistently supporting us, whether it be through donations, whether it be through buying shirts, whether it be through those awesome iTunes reviews. I want to read one of them. This last one was pretty awesome. Well, okay, I hate it when I always have to give a is it a qualifier? Yeah, hey, we know they're all awesome, but this one, we recognize was great. So let me look this up real quick. And here's the thing. These reviews, as we say every time, it helps us in the algorithm. It pushes up our podcast when people are looking for reselling.
And it motivates and encourages us.
It does. We're at 307.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're moving on up. So maybe we'll read 2. We'll see. All right. So I thought this was pretty hilarious. Oh, yeah, there's 2 of them. So let's read 2 of them.
All right, that's it.
Whoa, there's another one. Wow, remember that one I said, hey, we should read this on air?
Maybe we'll do one on our update episode.
Wow, there's 4 added since then. Thank you guys. Yeah. Seriously, thank you. All right, so this comes from the Stephen King universe.
Nice.
Stephen King universe said, it was a seasonably warm Ohio afternoon. I found myself wanting to hear something pure. The algorithm was in my favor. Not far down my list of options, I found the soothing tone of Orlando and Mike telling me all about the flip life. Flip on, hustlers.
Nice.
I like that.
I'm not even sure if that's a reseller.
No, what do you mean? He was like a poet?
Well, maybe, or just they're just. I mean, who knows? But that's cool. Thank you. I've always kind of
thank you, Stephen King universe.
Yeah, I've always kind of wished I had a better radio voice. More of a deep tone that sounded nice and soothing. I don't. So it is what it is. And so the fact that, our voices are those things that maybe are helping lull you to sleep when you're having a a difficult day, and we can be that calm. It's cool. It's cool, man.
Thank you guys. I shared that with Mike. I texted that one to Mike, and we're like, lol. But it was hilarious. It was awesome. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you for the reviews. All right, we are about halfway through these. Let's go to. Are we doing a voicemail for the next one?
Yep.
Okay, let's hit it.
Hey guys, this is Jeff again. I called the other day. I had another question for you. Just what is your view and pros and cons of an eBay store versus just selling on eBay? Again, I was just starting out as a reseller, and I'm doing a lot of homework really quick to kind of educate myself on a lot of stuff. So I just wanted your thoughts on an eBay store versus just selling on eBay and what your thoughts were on that. Again, love the podcast. Thanks for all the tips and advice and knowledge.
Oh.
Bellow!
Yeah.
That was awesome. Like out of nowhere.
That needs to be added to our sound effects.
I appreciate that. That was like, boom. I'm all thinking through his question, like how am I going to answer it?
And here's the thing too, is Google Voice will like give you a transcript, and it's usually pretty off. Sometimes it's funny just what the transcript says, and you're like, what are they saying? But there was nothing after that last part. We said, thanks for all the tips and advice and knowledge. It doesn't say Bolo. So I wasn't expecting. I thought it was going to end. I'm like, man, 4 seconds of just dead air. I was about to turn it down. All of a sudden, Bolo. I liked it. That's good.
Nice. All right. So being that you went from a non-store to a store, I mean, I've done that for a while. What are your thoughts?
There's not a one size fits all or an easy answer for this. I guess there is an easy answer, but it's going to be case by case. And the easy answer is when it makes sense. And what I mean by that is if you've got 10 items in a store and you're just starting out and you've got those free listings and it's not costing you anything or barely anything, don't do it. When you get to the point where you're spending more on insertion fees than it would cost for the store, then get the store. Now, depending on your sell-through rate, that's not necessarily, you might say, well, I have 500 items, so I need this store. But if your sell-through rate is pretty quick, you might be listing 1,000 items a month, so you need a different store. So every case is going to be different. It's not even, once you get this amount of inventory, or once you have, what I would say is look at your bills, and if you're paying more in insertion fees than you would get for the store. And then there's also other benefits, right? The ability to do, sales, the ability to go on vacation mode, all of the different things that you have available that start to open up with stores. So you got to ask yourself, are these features I could use? What about the coupon? Am I going to get a $25 coupon once a quarter or whatever it is? There might be certain things that you kind of factor in, but usually the simple answer is if you're paying more each month in insertion fees than the cost of a store, get the store.
Agreed. And to me, the magic number was around 50. Like I remember when I hit 50, I was like, I need a store, because I was looking at the insertion fees and the cost, because based on the level of store, you get a free amount of insertion fees. Now you are paying, it's not free, right? It's not like you instantly are saving money, but there's also the free shipping coupon that you can count into that. And to me, it's a great deal. Plus, yes, the other perks are very valuable. So Mike had mentioned about the idea of doing a markdown sale. I think that's key. And there's also the ability of using Terapeak. I think that's super important. I mean, research is golden. And so it's kind of nice that eBay, merged with Terapeak, because back in the day, like Terapeak was a different service, right? So when eBay merged with Terapeak, it gave another bonus having an eBay store. Now, our hope in the long term is that eBay will end insertion fees and we just pay store fees, or vice versa. I don't know what it'll be like. That'd be interesting if they opened up the door to everything.
Yeah.
Right. No store subscriptions. Like they just charge insertion fees, but no store subscriptions, or no insertion fees and just store subscriptions. Which one do you think would be better? On the spot now.
I think it should just be either or, right? You have the choice. You can get a certain store, like, you pay $100 a month or whatever it is, depending on what the store would look like. And there's zero insertion fees, or there's level of stores and it's unlimited, or you pay for insertion fees. That way, it kind of just depends on, I think Amazon's a good example of this. You can pay the $30 a month and you're not paying a certain fee per item, or you pay whatever it is, 99 cents per item to list. And so that, to me, that makes
Amazon,
sense.
It's 40, and then you pay, if you don't pay that 40, like the professional model, you end up paying $1 per item that you sell.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, so that, to me, a model like that would make sense, like either or. So if you've got a small store, you're not listing a lot of things, then maybe you just pay per diem or per item, or if you have enough, then you buy the store. And so that way people have an option. But then instead of kind of tacking on both, so if you have the store, you still have to potentially pay insertion fees if you go too much. I just think maybe there's a store that's a certain level and it's not unlimited, or you can pay a little bit more and have unlimited. And I don't know, that'd be nice. But again, I have to believe that there are very smart people working at eBay who are doing the best things given the knowledge they have, and that there's reasons they haven't done that, and that it's in my best interest. Because if I don't believe the best in that situation, then you get negative and upset and frustrated. So I just got to believe that they're doing the right thing for the customers and for the sellers and for eBay as a business. And if they grow and learn another way, they're going to implement it. But it's so easy for somebody to be an armchair quarterback and say, you should do it this way, not knowing all the behind the scenes. We're like, well, if we did it that way, it would actually hurt sellers, or it would hurt customers, or we would make less money and we'd have to fire a bunch of people. And then so we just don't know. But I hope they're doing the right thing based off of what they know.
Yeah. And so just getting back to the original question, should you get an eBay store or not, or what's the difference? I adamantly say, I think it's a good call to make, because there's a lot more perks of not having a store, right? And I already mentioned a lot of them, but sometimes there's those perks that you don't see coming. Like, for example, this last go round during the pandemic, if you had a store that was a premium or higher, you got 50,000 free listings, and it was only supposed to go till May. And then it ended up going through the end of July, and maybe it'll extend further. But even pre-pandemic, stuff like that would happen all the time. It would say, hey, if you're an eBay store owner, this month we're going to give you 1,000 free listings, or this month we're going to give you 500 auction style listings. So to me, the price that you get is well worth it, because even with the shipping supplies that you get each quarter, right? It's not going to cover everything. It's not going to cover the cost of your store subscription fee, but overall, I think I end up using the amount that I pay based on how much I use Terapeak, how much I use sales, and the fact that I use the shipping supplies consistently. And I always, I wish there was an in-between though, between premium and anchor, but I always max out my listings. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question about stores.
Good.
Are we doing a voicemail again?
Nope.
No. Oh, that we just did a voicemail. All right. So next question is, I have a pair of cowboy boots, but can't find the size. What do I do? All right. So I'll take this one. So this is a tough one. If you are unable to get your hand inside a boot. So what I mean by that is, the easiest way I sell things that I can't find the size is if I can remove the insole, I'll remove the insole. And then with measuring tape, I'll measure the insole, and I'll go online and I'll say how many inches, or what is the size to inches ratio on a certain kind of shoe. And usually websites, whether it's Doc Martens or whether it's Tony Lama or Merrill or whatever, they usually have an inches to size, side by side. And you can say, okay, if this is 11 inches, this is probably a size 12 or 13 or so on. That's one way of doing it. If you can't remove the insole, right, you have to go inside the shoe, and you have to make sure the tip of the measuring tape gets to the very end, and you measure the other side of the insole, and that's how you do it. Now, I do remember someone at one point found something on Alibaba that was like a shoe measuring thing that you can buy. I haven't found that tool. I looked for it, but if anybody knows, if we can get anything out of this podcast, if you can find a tool that can measure shoes that would eliminate the measuring tape and measuring insoles, let us know. Let us know down below. I would love to find out, but that is the easiest way. And when I do the listing, I'll put what size it is on the main headline, but then when I go to the description, I'll put 13 ? And then parentheses say measured approximately at whatever inches. So then the buyer knows that, hey, this wasn't, something that came right off the label, that this was measured out. Because most people, right, can go and they can grab measuring tape and measure their foot and go, hey, is it worth it? Right. And then the other one I want to throw out that's kind of tough. Sometimes you'll find a boot and there's no size and you can't tell if it's a male or female boot. Right. The easiest way is if you put it on and you can't put it on. That's
I don't know if that works.
It's happened before where
if it's your size.
Yeah, if it's your size. Yeah. No, I know I'm joking around, but yeah, if it's your size. But the other way is you look at the comparison charts, and Euro sizes are the same, right? So you'll be able to tell if you can find the Euro size Then you can determine, all right, is this a male or is this a female shoe? And then you can determine size. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one way of doing it. And always remember, I'm going to throw extra info. Doc Martens that are made in England are UK sizes. And you always have to look up the US size, right, to make sure you have the right size. Always do that side-by-side comparison. I'm trying to remember right now. I think it's usually the US size is, I'm not going to even say it.
Yeah.
Just look it up.
Yeah, look it up.
All right. So, hey, hopefully that helped. Hey, we're all in that same game of like you find vintage pieces and you're trying to find the measurement. That's how I do it. Hopefully that was helpful.
Cool. All right. Another voicemail. Here we go.
Hi, guys. This is Kathy Copeland, and I really don't need to expect you to call back. I mean, there's no telling how many calls you guys get, but I'm one of your loyal followers. Just started a few months ago listening to podcasts and Instagram and stuff. But anyway, under 3 minutes, I do not understand the difference between global shipping and international shipping. And I listened to the thing where you were talking about, I think it was you, Orlando, that was, you had started doing it and all that. And anyway, I've been looking at all the things on the eBay Seller Hub. I been on the chat box with them, and it did not make sense what they said. And then I've been on the phone with them, asking them the difference between the two, because I started thinking maybe it's the same thing, international and global, but it's not. It's two different things. Like you go about them different ways, and I'm just like so confused about it. So anyway, you don't have to. I don't expect to call that, but I just don't know if it's something you could put on your Instagram or something for those of us who are a little slower than maybe the average seller or something. I don't know, because I want to break out of just domestic shipping, but I'm just really nervous about it. And I want to do, like when you list something, you have the option, to click the international thing, but there's no option there for global. It's like you have to go into your settings or something. It's just, I don't get it. I don't understand the difference of the shipping stuff. So anyway, I'm repeating myself, but anyway, you guys are awesome, and I never actually thought I would call you guys, but it just came up when I had the option to contact you. So I just clicked the button for fun, actually. So you guys keep doing what you're doing. It's very inspiring. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, Kathy, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the call.
Do you want to get this rolling?
Yeah, I'm sure Orlando will go more into the specifics, but just to give a brief and to keep this concise, international shipping, you are dealing with sending it to the customer directly through whatever agencies you have to do. So it's got to go through, depending on the items or what country it's going to, the custom forms, and you are responsible for making sure that item gets from wherever you're located in the United States to whatever country it's going to or wherever you're at. The global shipping program, at least for our American listeners, you send the item to Kentucky, goes to an eBay warehouse in Kentucky. They then deal with all of the international, the paperwork, any of the stuff that has to go overseas, if they have to fill out custom forms or if there's extra taxes and fees and all of that. The customer pays eBay that. Now, the difference and the reason why it comes up so much on our podcast is it is easier, I think, to do global shipping. It's a lot easier, and there's a lot of reasons, like risk-wise, where there may be less risk for you. However, it is potentially more expensive for a customer. So if a customer is buying it internationally and you're the one doing all this stuff, they might be able to, let's say, pay $20 shipping, but if they go through global shipping, they might be paying $35. So you might be losing buyers if you're doing just global shipping. But at least for Orlando, he feels like that's worth it to lose those potential buyers for the ease and for the sake of not having as much responsibility. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. You can kind of think internationally, you're responsible for figuring out, making sure, and there's programs you can use that'll kind of, okay, this is going to Australia, or this is going to England. And so you could fill out the right paperwork for it. And a lot of programs will do most of it for you. Just put in the information. But the nice thing with global shipping is the bummer is sometimes customers will say, like, well, how much is it going to cost to ship? And they have to put it in their cart and actually figure out. And a lot of times the shipping is really high, which is the reason why most of the items that we sell that go globally are higher end items where maybe it's already selling for $300 and they don't mind spending $40 shipping for something that might even be small, because it's such a high end item that difference isn't that big of a deal to them. So That's it in a nutshell. International shipping, you're responsible for making sure it gets to where they're going and all the custom forms. Global shipping, you send it to Kentucky, they take care of that.
Yeah. And one is more economical and the other costs more. So, right. And so add one more layer to that. So you can just ship stuff without doing eBay international delivery. You can do it like that. That's one option. A lot of people do that through pirate ship, through simple export, and that you can do up to 4 pounds. So that's one way. So the reason that eBay introduced this was they wanted to allow you to be more competitive, as Mike said, because eBay, when they do the eBay Global Shipping Program, they charge everything up front. So they charge your shipping, they charge everything's priority international. And on top of that, they charge the import fees, the custom fees, or whatever other fees upfront. And usually they're above the amount that, I don't know if they're usually, I can't say I know what it looks like on the other end, but I'm guessing it's a little bit heftier than if it was once it goes through customs, because it's an upfront cost, right? So when you do the international shipping delivery through eBay, it's called eBay International Standard Delivery. It gets there and then they pay those customs and those fees when it arrives to their country, right? And that's been my reservation about it, is like, what if they go and they're like, I don't want to pay this, right? And then they reject it, right? Then you're in a scenario. Now, I don't think that happens. I haven't had anybody DM us or message us saying, hey, I did stuff through eBay's International Standard Delivery and the person rejected the item because they didn't want to pay the customs and the fees. Now, the good thing that both programs provide, right, and this is why you're better off doing international standard delivery above just sending it yourself, is that eBay has their shipping protection plan. So what it means that they guarantee delivery of every item that you send, right? And if you remember, we haven't shared this yet, but yeah, we did. In our previous podcast episode, we had talked about the idea that eBay was now limiting. There's certain countries that bowed out, or for a reason eBay couldn't provide those. So take a look at that. You don't have to go to the podcast. You can go to the Seller Community Forum. It's under Seller News about how they limited certain countries. But what it does is, I'll read it real quick. It says, we will protect you by removing negative and neutral feedback and defects when things happen that are outside of your control. So if it gets lost or it gets damaged in shipping. So it's kind of like eBay's global shipping in a way. This could include weather, carrier delays, or when the item arrives late, but tracking shows you shipped on time, right? The difference, though, between eBay International Standard Delivery and eBay Global Shipping, eBay Global Shipping is pretty much like 99.9999% of the time, you're protected no matter what. Like, and chances are you're not going to get a return. Chances are the best way for me when I send higher priced items that are larger even to do global shipping is to send to Kentucky, because once it gets to Kentucky, I don't have to worry about it anymore. But if you send through eBay standard international delivery, you're having to track it the whole way, and it's guaranteed to be there. So there is that. But with eBay Global Shipping Program, that's it. You're done. You send it to Kentucky. So hopefully that was that clear?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Hope so. Hey, thank you so much, Kathy, for calling in. All right, let's read this next one. It says, I don't know if you have covered this or not, but what is your take on free shipping and adding the shipping cost into the price of eBay? Yes or no? Right now, I'm adding the cost to my items for free shipping because that's what my business entails. Because I guess they said they're sending knit and crochet, which is lighter items. So that's a little easier to do free shipping with. So What are your thoughts on that?
There's really, no matter what, there's no such thing as free shipping. You might offer free shipping, but somebody's paying for it, right? Either the customer's paying, well, always the customer pays for it, or it's coming out of your net profit. Somebody's paying for it. And so it's a lot of times it's almost just like a psychological game that you can play. Customers might be willing to spend $15 on something with free shipping than to spend $11 on something that has $3.99 shipping, right? If they see a shipping charge, plus you might get that fast and free little sticker that goes on your item because, next day delivery or, 1 business day for shipment and it's free. And so that might be something that triggers people to see that. I've noticed when I did free shipping, I tend to get more sales that way. So yeah, I'll just add it into the price. I'll up the price a little bit. If I think it's going to be $5 to ship something, I might charge, $4 extra and just know that my net profit's going to be a little less, or vice versa. But no matter what, there's times you might find something that's profitable, but you look and you see like the cost of shipping, I'm not actually going to make money on this. And so that's always a factor when you sell something. And just know that there's really no such thing as free shipping. And I think what ends up happening is you offer free shipping, but you're either charging the customer more or you're willing to take less profit. So one of those two things is happening when you offer free shipping. Even if you charge shipping, they're paying the shipping and your item costs a little less, or it's not going to sell if it's priced at the right place. So figure it out. Figure out what works best for you in your market. If everybody's offering free shipping and you're the only one that doesn't, you're probably going to have a hard time selling in that niche. If you offer free shipping and you just raise the prices a little bit, that might be all it takes to get people to say, hey, I'm buying that. So you can try and see what works best for you. Do an experiment, put half your items on free shipping and raise the price, that extra 10 or 20%, and do the other half not free shipping, and, charge what it would cost to ship it and see what happens.
Yeah. And the key thing is knowing what the competition is doing, right? If you go and your niche that you're looking into, most people are doing free shipping, you don't necessarily have to charge free shipping, or you can, and it makes you more competitive, right? But do the research, see what people are doing, and then that'll actually give you the true cost of what items are selling for. I'll just throw in one more thing is once an item goes beyond first class for me, I always charge shipping. We've shared that before. And if an item is more than $50, I always send priority, or I send FedEx or whatever with insurance, because once you hit that $50 mark, you want to make sure that your item is protected. And eBay has it. If you send it priority, you're guaranteed up to $100. So it's worth it.
I like it.
So, all right. Got another question here. What a surprise. Hopefully you guys are bearing through this. I know some of this is like, I know this, but hey, we're all learning. Like I look at some of this and I actually had to go back and like research, because I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. All right, number 8, why do some resellers share their numbers and others don't? How do I know what I need to do to be full-time? Okay, that's for me. Okay.
Oh, I mean,
no, I'll answer. No. So I've shared it, and we get this question a lot. And we get this question about us, like, hey, Orlando, why don't you share your numbers? Like, why don't you show your 90-day total? Why don't you share your Amazon 30-day and da-da-da? And the number one reason why we don't is because they are not true numbers, right? I can all day, I've shared this before, like I can show 100K in Amazon sales, but that doesn't mean I made 100K. I could have made only 10, honestly, I could have made only 10K with 100K sales.
Or 1K.
Or 1K. Yeah, I know. 1K is kind of rough, but yeah, there are some major resellers I know that they sell in the millions, but their net take home is like 1.5%. Now, for $1 million, that's $150,000. No, that's not a lot of money. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit more, but what I'm trying to tell you is like that is why we don't do that, because hey, there's no purpose in me saying, hey, I sold all this. Now, if I can show you, hey, these are items to look out for. This is how to sell things. This is how to scale your business. That to me is way more valuable than just throwing up a chart and going like, hey, look what I can do.
Yeah. And even that goes for showing the gross number, right? That's the reason why we don't show gross number, but even net number, one of the reasons we don't do that. And that kind of goes into your second question of how do I know when I can go full time, is everybody's different. And so somebody whose net is $500 a month, that might be like, that's what they need. That's what they want. That's why they're doing reselling, and they're not trying to go full time. And, they could share that and then get blasted for it. Or you can show a ton of money and people can look at that and say like, I'm not making that. I'm, I don't net $10,000 a month. That's insane. And I must be failing. And so just the same reason why, like, I've never gone to somebody and like pulled out my paycheck and said like, look at how much I made at my company this week or this month.
This is the only business where people do that.
There's a reason for it. It's showing, I wouldn't say it's the only business, like any kind of hustle thing, people will do this. But
it's strange to me.
It's a kind of show like, look at how successful I am. And there's reasons, because would you rather listen to the person who knows what they're talking about and can prove like, hey, look, I'm actually bringing in this much money. What I say has some validity. Or would you listen to the person who is talking, but like if you were to look at their numbers, they're not actually making any money. So it can be useful to know, hey, I'm going to buy a course. Is this person actually profitable? So there is times where it's useful to show that money. But just the average person, I don't know, maybe you're telling your friends like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm actually making, twice as much as I was making at my day job. And so you might share numbers for that reason. And there's been times we've shared like how much money we've made on items or in a week on certain things, or how much we've grown. We've grown 5%. But if I were to say my numbers, you might look at that and scoff and go like, that's nothing. That's pennies. But that's what it's. Hey, it's making it work for me. That's what I'm aiming for. And so then again, how much do you need? You got to figure that out. How much do you need to cover all of your expenses, to be saving, to be building wealth? And once you have that number, then you can say, am I consistently, not just 1 month, but am I consistently making that much or more every month, month after month for a long period of time? And you can say, all right, now I have what I need to go full time, and I have a backup plan. I've got months of reserve. So if I don't make any sales for a month and my business burns down, I can make it for the next month or two. And so that number, nobody can give you that number. You got to figure out what are your expenses. Do you have a lot of expenses, or are your expenses really low? So, and
that's the tough part, because we're in California, right? So I need a lot more than most people to go full time, but I've also reduced my costs a lot. So I don't pay the normal cost of rent that others pay, right? I don't pay the normal cost of rent for transportation because everything I need is nearby, right? So I don't spend that much in gas. There may be somebody that lives in the Midwest and they have to drive a lot, right? So that's a cost that's different than my cost, right? But your rent is going to be a lot lower, or your mortgage is going to be a lot lower. So you have to ultimately decide, okay, what do I need to make it? And then what do I need to have capital, and what do I need to have savings, and all those things, right? Because those all play into a part. And actually, we have a whole episode devoted to that, episode 128. Now, The other part I wanted to share too is sometimes people don't share because it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they could be going through a divorce and they don't want to share numbers. They could be dealing with, they're in a neighborhood and they don't want people to know they're a reseller. Like, imagine you lived in a neighborhood and like you're making, I don't know, let's say $500K, and you kept your inventory in your house. Like, I wouldn't want people to know, that could be another reason. There could be another reason that they have family members that they don't want to know. There could be all kinds of personal reasons, right? So I do believe that in time, you can recognize if somebody is really a reseller, or are they just making money on YouTube or on Instagram. The number one ways to know that is, over time, are they just regurgitating the same thing, or are they documenting actually what they're doing? And I'm not talking about like every once in a while they're like, hey, I'm going to hit the thrift, or every once in a while, hey, I'm going to send this Amazon shipment. Are they consistently providing value and documenting their process? This is why Mike and I do so much social media, because I believe it's very key that like, hey, it's all good that you guys listen to the podcast, but if all we did is a podcast, I could make up stories all the time. I mean, I could come out with some great stories, right? And Mike, who's an English guy, could come out with some really good stories.
I could embellish some amazing finds.
You could, but if you follow us on Instagram, we share our stories. I mean, a lot of the stories that we share on the podcast have already been shared in a minimal way, with how much you can do actually on an IG story. But you guys know, hey, this actually happened. He's telling the truth. And sometimes, you can find people's eBay stores like ours and you can say, hey, are they actually selling the stuff that they're talking about? And that's another easy way to do it. So that is why people may share or may not share their numbers.
That's good. Cool.
All right.
Here we go.
We got an awesome last voicemail question.
Let's hear it.
Hey, Pure Hustle Podcast. This is Simon, Psycho Man from San Francisco, the Rain Spooner guy. I saw you guys last episode. It was great. I love you guys. I have a quick question. I have a deal coming up. 200 Barbies mint from the 80s, 90s, and probably 70s. But the deal includes a dozen Alexander dolls and a dozen FNB dolls. These are also mint in boxes, and they kind of freak me out. At what point have you ever said no to a deal when a few of the items just creep you out? I don't want to pass up the Barbies because they're rare, and I know that these F&B and Alexander dolls are going to give me a profit. They just freak me out because of those movies. So at what point would you guys back away from this if those dolls Scared the heebie-jeebies out of you. Anyway, if you can get back to me, that's okay. That'd be cool. If not, anyway, once again, thanks again. You guys give me lots of great content. So this deal is kind of freaking me out. I don't know. I can't even talk about it because it's just thinking about those dolls. But the Barbies, there's money in those Barbies I want to grab, but it's a bulk deal. So that's my dilemma. I hope I was able to say everything within 3 minutes. Once again, thanks again. You guys take care. You guys are the greatest. This is Simon, Psycho Man from Psycho Man Seismic Sales in San Francisco. Take care. Bye.
That's awesome. I love that. I occasionally have listened to a podcast because I'm into like Dungeons and Dragons, and they had a Dungeons and Dragons podcast, and they have like more of a comedy show podcast they do. And it's a group of brothers, and their podcast is My Brother, and Me. And they have a segment that they do, I'd say like every fourth or fifth show. And it's what they do is they go online, and there are people who sell haunted dolls, and they have to like put a disclaimer like this is just for entertainment purposes only when they sell those dolls. But there are people who literally sell intentionally dolls that look creepy and haunted, and that's their thing. And people buy that stuff, and they make up stories about, you know, what spirits in this one. And so that just reminded me of like, okay, creepy doll. I've seen some creepy looking dolls, and I can get why you would say no. I guess I'd have two questions for you on this. One, is it profitable if you did the bulk deal and just sold the Barbies and just threw those dolls away, right? Like maybe you can do that. Maybe if there's still enough profit and it's worth it, and you could just buy the bulk deal and throw the rest away, even though you're throwing money away. But if it really is keeping you up at night and you can't handle it and you're still making profit, you might as well. Or you might say,
don't
is
put
it
it
worth
in
it?
your room facing you. That's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. Don't do that. But the other thing too, I mean, everybody's going to have their own tolerance level. Certain people are comfortable selling certain things because of, you know, moral issues. They might decide that I don't want to sell another thing. So you have to decide yourself if this is really something, what's going to keep you up at night more? Having the dolls in your house or in your inventory, or passing up on a deal and losing the money. And only you can decide that. But I think it's a great story.
It is. It's a tough one. So one time I bought a whole bunch of cosmetics from someone, and then I found out that one of the cosmetics I had was made from human cells.
Ooh.
And eBay wouldn't let me, like I listed it and eBay kept pulling. I'm like, what's going on? And that's when I did research, and I was like, oh, this is kind of
not selling this.
I'm not selling this. And you know, could I have made the profit? Yeah, I would have made a decent profit. And actually the hard part about it was that this was going to be a replenishable that I would have been able to source every month.
Yeah. And
it would have been good money, but I could not do it. Like I couldn't handle it. I couldn't even donate it. I just tossed it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm done with this. But so you got to figure out what's better for you, peace of mind or the extra few dollars you make in your pocket. But treat it like every other bulk buy, right? How many times do you do a bulk buy and you end up buying junk, right? Because part of the deal is like you take everything, right? And you don't want to hurt that deal by saying, yeah, you know what? Unless, you know, I don't have to pick this up, I'm not willing to do it. Like this could be super profitable to you.
Yeah. Or split the deal with somebody. If you know somebody, because again, if it's not like a moral issue, because like, for instance, for me, even you mentioned that with like the cream or the medical or whatever it was. For me, I buy sometimes like lots of certain books like manga or comic books, and I make some pretty decent money on those sometimes. And occasionally there's like a set and I like just see the titles and I start looking through it. And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable selling this. I don't even feel comfortable that this thing exists. Like this is really bizarre. And there's times where it's like, I bought this in a bulk buy with stuff. And so those ones just go in the trash because I would hate for some kid to get this book, right? That's kind of the way I think about it. And so, yeah, if it's something that where you're like, this thing, these dolls shouldn't even exist, you feel that like uncomfortable with it. But if it's just like, I just don't want them in my house, then maybe you can find a friend or another reseller, reach out on Instagram and say, hey, I have this buy opportunity. I want the Barbies. Will somebody split the cost? Here's what's in the manifest. Here are the items you can get. And you can get the F&B dolls and whatever the other dolls were. You can get these and then you can split the cost. That way you're not actually throwing it away. And somebody else who does feel comfortable with the dolls in their house can sell them.
Yeah. I mean, but I think it's a great question because if you're looking at bulk buys, this is part of bulk buys. This is, you know, people that buy storage unit. This is what they deal with. People that end up buying, you know, liquidation from an estate and they have to buy everything in the house. It's part of the scenario. So, great question. Really appreciate that because, you know, it made me think about all the bulk buys where sometimes some stuff I was like, I don't even want to deal with this. And I tossed it. Other times I donated it. Other times I flipped it for a quick buck and I took a little bit less, but it covered a lot of the cost of the poke buy. And then other times I began to research and began to, contemplate like, why am I struggling with this? You know what? I should be okay with this. And I'd flip it, right? So there's different options for you. So I appreciate that question, Simon.
Yeah,
that was great.
That's awesome.
Hey, so thank you to everyone that tuned in. Thank you to all of you that called or answered the question box in our IG story or hit us up in the DMs. Really appreciate the questions. Keeps us on our toes. Hopefully we answered these well. And if we didn't, there's the comment section below. Appreciate, love everybody there. Hopefully you guys are having a great week of reselling. With that being said, make sure to be real,
Be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.